Okay, folks, welcome back to another fantastic edition of Opali Presents Know Your Pros. This, in fact, folks, is number 100, and who better of a guest to have on our 100th edition of this show than Josh Farley of Redline Electric and Solar. They are Phoenix Valley's choice for electrical work and solar installations here in the state of Arizona. Josh is the president and the CEO and tells us that you'll never be without power with Redline. Josh, it is a thrill to have you here as a guest
Hey,
on.
Henry, congratulations on the huge milestone, 100, right? Now I feel a lot of pressure on it, right?
you know,
Well done on the intro as well. I appreciate you having me.
oh, of course, man. You are, in the very brief amount of time that I've known you, a very dynamic guy who runs a very dynamic business. Um, and I love hosting this show just because not only do I get to do a little favor for the businesses I have as guests, but I get to pick the brains of the entrepreneurs who run these businesses, right? And the impression I get from Redline, at least online where I live, right? I'm, a reviews guy, a digital marketing guy. Redline to me seems like an incredibly well-established brand and a very trusted resource for folks around Phoenix and the state of Arizona at large. How did you grow it to such a big, incredible enterprise? And why did you get started with it in the first place? Can you tell us that like journey?
Yeah, wow. There's a lot to dig into there. So I got in trouble as a kid, right? I got into the wrong crowd of friends, so I kind of got in trouble at school. Long story short, I got asked to leave high school. My dad was an electrician, and he pretty much said if he couldn't stay home from work, I couldn't stay home from school. So I went to work with him. That's kind of how I got into the industry. Years later, I knew I had to cut my own teeth, and he was a service electrician, commercial service electrician, and that's what I became. And then then I got married, we got pregnant. I was like, oh, I gotta do something to provide more freedom for myself. So
Yeah.
what better way to provide freedom for yourself than going into business with yourself? At that time, I had a partner, but you and I both know starting a business doesn't provide you any more freedom. In fact, if it got worse, right? So it got worse, and then partnership was really bad. I was being taken advantage of, and so we got pregnant with my second child, Avery. Kind of was like, I got to do this on my own. I can't let somebody else hold me back. So I showed up to his house on a Sunday, handed him a Redline Electric business card, and said, "Call me if you need an electrician." And 3 months later, he was a firefighter, and here I was now on my own, right? So um, it took a lot to get from there to here. Over the years, I struggled. Not having a background in not having a background in business or an education in business, and I found an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. You might be familiar with it. They have an accelerator program for businesses that are doing 250,000 in revenue up to 1 million. And I found that organization, and it really made me think that, hey, there are other people out there struggling, even the ones that have degrees. So I felt like I was in my element. I felt like, hey, I'm not the only one struggling. It's not because I was a failure as a child or a dropout, high school dropout. It was everybody struggles with getting to the next level. So going through that program, really kind of, I called it my streetwise MBA. And then we also found, and then really to escalate the business to where we are now, is we found EOS, or traction. And I was reading a book. Lencioni wrote a book called The Advantage and talked about values, core values. And he said that your business has values, whether you define them or not, it's up to you. And I looked around at my business, and I was like, I'm surrounded by these guys that don't care, and people that they're just in it for the money, or they're taking advantage. And I was like, I need to define my values. And I know we spoke a little bit. You saw them online. You can see our values anywhere you look. You're running into our values now, and we live and die by those. And that EOS framework really helped project us, into the Inc. 5000 list for the fourth time this year. So,
Oh, congratulations, man. I mean, that's
long story short, right? Like, long story short.
Well, I mean, that totally knocks out like the first two questions I always ask, which is, hey, why start a business? And then, hey, why pick this field? So much of what Redline is are those values that you just sort of described. So, rather than kind of get into the rinky dink cookie cutter question that I might always ask, I'd love it if you could just elaborate a little bit on what that is. That will tie perfectly into the last one, which is always, hey, why should you call Redline? I know that
Yeah.
you had it started as an electrical company and then it was a solar business combined into one. But tell us about the values, the people you work with, and what you provide.
Yeah, so quick note on that solar, why we added solar to the name. So solar, is an you have to have an electrical contractor's license to do solar. So it's almost as if a plumber would say, "Hey, Redline plumbing and water heaters." But the community doesn't understand that. So I was out for solar training. We're getting ABCEP certified. I put an auto response, said, "Hey, I'm out for solar training." And the feedback I heard from my clients, the people that were emailing me were like, "Hey, you guys do solar too?" So it was just so much of my current clientele had no idea we did solar. I just added that to the name. So that's kind of how we evolved from a Redline Electric to Redline Electric and Solar, even though it's the same license, which is just funny, but people don't treat it like that. And then as far as my values, when I was struggling, right? We were struggling around that $1 million revenue mark. And, and I know it's a milestone. It's also a plateau, I don't know what the stat is currently, but just 5 years ago, only 4%, 4 to 5% of businesses ever got to 1 million in revenue. So I knew I was doing something right, but how do we break that plateau? And then I was like, read that book and started the EOS process. They're like, define your values. But I had to dig deep because I didn't want some bullshit answer. Sorry. You,
Yeah,
you cut that out. We're contractors, right?
this is a
Um,
hundred, baby. Anything goes here.
Right. So Lynch only called pay to play values are, honesty, integrity, on reliable, right? All those things, those don't need to be defined. You have to have those to be a productive member in society, right? You have to have those just to be able to step into the game. I needed something that was mine, that was all about what I hold true to be my value, and then to find like-minded people. So empathy, I know what it feels like to need a hand, right? Especially in the middle of the night. That's why we offer 24-hour emergency service. Um, Humility, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to tell you. The last thing I want is for me to be considered a liar. I need to be humble and be able to tell you when I've messed up, or tell you I don't know, right? We're learning every day. Technology is moving. And then accountability, when things go wrong, or when you stand up and say you're going to do something, I want to be there. Um, Perfect example. I was just talking with my leadership team. Like when somebody gets on my calendar, it's on my calendar unless something happens. And I know that we had an issue. Nobody knows about that, right? So
Oh,
like,
please, we're both busy, Josh. Yeah,
right, everybody's busy.
apologize
So
for me.
things happen, but we just got to communicate those issues, right?
Right.
But if you're on my calendar, it's either happening or we've communicated about it. But when somebody calls me morning of, like when I'm on my way to coffee and they're like, "Hey, are you still coming?" I'm like, "Why are you trying to cancel on me? I said I'd be there. I'm gonna be there, right? I don't need to double check." So empathy, humility, accountability. It sounded a little bit feminine. Empathy is like a feminine sounding word, and I wanted to toughen it up as a contractor, so we kind of put it into a mantra. Sacrifice for others is our empathy. Move without fear is our humility, and own our outcomes. Right out. So it's I will sacrifice for others, move without fear, and own my outcomes because I am Redline. And that's what we're building at Redline. And everybody we hire and fire, it's all based on our value system. And it's really, I've been able to exponentially grow. Over the last 5 years, I feel like we've grown 5 times. When I had my old values, we were at 9 employees. When I instituted my new values, we went back to 4. Right, so people would quit or they got fired because they just weren't living those values. And now we're hiring 20 at 25. So it's really probably the foundation to the success that we've seen. I know
Well,
it sounds weird to say that, like, our foundation is our values, but I mean it's so important.
Well, and I mean, when you walk that walk, or talk the talk, I guess I should say, the walk comes right after it. A value-driven business is one that people will just naturally be attracted to, right? And the stories that are told about your business, and I know this better than anybody, with reviews, are that that's the front line of trust. And having a value set as a business is, that personal, that one-to-one, that relational front line too.
Right.
So, man, I can't think of a better guest for number 100, Josh. That was so perfect the way you put that out there. I do want to wrap this up. I don't want to go too long here with you. But before we wrap here, Josh, can you tell our viewers out there, and anybody who might be curious about electric or solar for their home or business, where they can get in touch with you, how they can grab you guys at Redline?
Yeah, I mean, I am redline.com. You'll learn a lot about how, who we are and what we do. There's some contact forms there and our phone number. We live and die by our values. Those, along with our power process, kind of set us apart from our competition. So if you're an existing home owner or an existing business owner, that's where we work. So give us a call if you're in any need of electrical service.
Beautiful, folks. And they
Like,
are, of course,
the pitch is the hardest part for me, right? Like everything else is just it's the pitch. Like, so because we're just genuine people. You're gonna get authenticity, right? So
right. Well, that's what the show is all about. Know your pros is so that we can know you, know
yeah.
your business, and know Josh. Folks, everything that Josh just said, of course, is going to be in the description of this video. They're based in Tempe, but if you're anywhere close to Phoenix, you should be talking to Redline. I am redline.com. Go book an appointment with the guys over on their Google listing. They've got killer reviews. Josh, thank you so much, man, for making the time to be a guest here today on Know Your Pros.
Hey, it was great, Henry. Have a great rest of your day.